Innovation is a key concept vital to driving sustainable growth in Africa, and the level of technological advancement witnessed in today's world opens up new opportunities to drive change and spur economic development. Through creative innovations, especially in artificial intelligence, robotics, virtual reality, among others, a lot of young minds are finding better ways to solve local problems, thereby building the continent's capacity to ensure a thriving digital economy. Preston Ide, CEO of STARS, shares his thoughts on advancing innovation in Africa. What are your thoughts on the state of innovation in Africa today?
Well, I think innovation is something that Africa has seen a particular sort of boom in the last decade. We've seen the growth of lots of very innovative startups working on some really complex problems that, quite frankly, will not be solved without the evolution and the advancements of technology. So I think that Africa as a continent is really pushing forward when it comes to innovation. And there are areas where we're probably a bit more advanced, particularly like financial services, where we're solving problems that perhaps the rest of the world isn't yet experiencing or isn't experiencing the same way. But I think that innovation on the continent has definitely been a growth story, and probably the most significant growth story that we've seen on the continent in the last decade.
Now, when we talk about innovation, more often than not, we speak about science and technology. But how can we inspire more young people to innovate and help solve significant problems using science and tech?
Yes, I think it's actually a very simple answer to that, and it's really to tell our stories. And when it comes to inspiration, nothing inspires young people more than knowing they can do it because they've seen other people doing it, right? We have lots of success stories across the entire innovation ecosystem, and consistently making those stories prominent, consistently showing how some people are really changing the way the world sees the continent, the way problems are solved, right? I think that is the key. As long as those stories are consistently told, I think that we'll continue to see a very, very powerful demographic of people, get involved. The other part of it that I think is really important is, quite frankly, government support. People would be very careful about going into a sector where they feel there isn't a lot of support from, the public sector. So it's very important that with initiatives like the Startup Act, right, the government continues to show explicitly its support for innovation, science, and technology.
Now, investment is also very key in this space. How can young people position themselves to be able to get the funds they need to scale up the ideas and innovations they have?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think capital is definitely one of the bigger barriers to innovation, particularly in technology, because, you need access to talent, you need access to so many tools that are, quite frankly, expensive. But I think it's really about understanding the investor more than anything, right? And, primarily when it comes to innovation, most investment comes from venture capitalists in Europe, venture capitalists in the US, and of course in Nigeria as well. We have a very active crop of angel investors. I think the key to attracting capital is understanding the needs of these investors, because investors need to raise money, they need to deploy it, and they need to return it, right? So building businesses that can actually absorb the kind of funding that investors have available is key. And of course, it comes back to this issue of storytelling, because to get the kind of investment dollars that we need to tell our stories to those investors. But I do think fundamentally, for young people who are trying to attract capital, it's about understanding the needs of the investors, understanding what they want to invest in, why they want to invest in, how they want to invest in, and then building companies that can actually take the dollars in and return them back to them at, significantly higher exit points.
You mentioned the Startup Act, which is supposed to help create an enabling environment for startups and SMEs and other small companies in Nigeria. But do you think we're still playing catch up in terms of regulations and policies?
Yes, well, generally, if you look across the African continent, there are about probably 9 countries that have startup acts or are currently considering startup acts, right? There are only 3 of them that actually have startup acts, and Nigeria is one of them, alongside Tunisia and Senegal, right? The other 6, countries are still in the process of actually legislating. So I would say that Nigeria is ahead when it comes to regulation. Of course, we've seen that in the last sort of administration, there has been some friction as people try to understand the regulatory landscape And of course, regulators try to stay ahead of, the innovators in the ecosystem. But fundamentally, I would say that, Nigeria is on the right path. We still have so much more to do. We still have to implement the proposals in Startup Act. So, recently we did some analysis that was showing that we still need to effectively follow the conclusions that we put in Startup Act. So I think there's still more room for improvement. But when you look at the fact that we have a Startup Act, across sort of 9 countries on the continent, and ours is one of 3 that are actually being legislated, I think that we are doing well, and we just need to keep improving.
Still on improvement. Over the years, we've had discussions about strengthening our innovation system. But don't you think we need larger conversations that not only support startups and SMEs, but also large companies as well?
Yes, I think you are right in that regard. And the best way to think about it is, what is the job of technology, right? I mean, technology at its core is really about efficiency, right? It's you taking some inputs and effectively producing outputs with fewer resources. And if you think about it from that perspective, then startups, small businesses, large organizations can benefit from technology. And it's not limited to just small companies or to startups. If you look at the Nigerian ecosystem, for instance, our technology ecosystem, telecom, they have played a very big and significant role. Similarly, the banks, right? So you have 2 really large industries, banks and telecommunication companies, that have played significant roles in our ecosystem. So it's definitely not limited to startups, but I would say that startups end up being the engine, just because the nature of creativity is such that sometimes groups of small people who effectively focus or hyper-focus on a problem can actually do more than perhaps large companies can do over time.
Well, Preston, you are at the Pan-African Youth Innovation Forum, organized by the Lagos Business School, co-creation of, and of course, Channels Television. It was a unique opportunity to learn from Mr. Bill Gates, co-chair of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and he spoke a lot about how advances in technology, especially artificial intelligence, can help drive change in health and the agricultural sector. How do we ensure that the learnings from that chat are sustained and imbibed by young people?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Channels has a big role to play when it comes to that, right? It's about disseminating the information and making sure that, lots of the things he mentioned, he talked about, is really shared with, the large proportion of, Nigerians who are interested in this space. I think that the event got the right amount of attention. I think that what Bill Gates talked about was enough to sort of inspire, spur young people. And I think that's doing the job. Of course, we need more of these kinds of events, right, for these conversations to happen for key stakeholders, not just young people, but regulators, investors, operators across the entire continent, to kind of see the opportunities. But I think it's really just continuing the conversation, because as people work, it's important that their work is sort of seen and is promoted, and that inspires more and more people to actually get involved and also build in a similar way.
And as one of the few who got to hear from, this global leader and a great achiever, Bill Gates, what did you take away from the event?
Yes, I think I have a bias. Of course, Steers is a data intelligence company, so we're very excited about what he said around artificial intelligence. I think that is one technology that has really changed the way people see the future. Lots of conversations around technology always relate to what does the future hold for us, right? But I think artificial intelligence and the pace at which it is improving is really going to change the entire way we look at the world, the way we do things. And in our space, particular information services, data, intelligence, I think there's a lot of opportunity for, African companies or operators in Africa to really take advantage, because we can build things significantly faster than our predecessors, right? We can take advantage of information, we can reduce information asymmetry. So I think that, the most exciting part for me was really hearing his views. I mean, he commented on just how impressed he is with, the models coming from AI and really what they're doing in the world. So I think that it's a very important technology to watch and make sure that, we also play an important part of that long-term story as well.
Well, that was a great conversation with you, Preston Ide, CEO of Stairs. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us on Tech Trends.
No problem. Glad to be here.